Hey guys, FilthyRobot here, bringing you the guides, tips, and tricks video. This time we are talking about how good is France. Alright, let's break down the bonuses. The first of these is Catherine's Flying Squadron, +1 level of diplomatic visibility. For every civilization that she's met, receives capacity to build an extra spy with castle technology. I actually think this may be the best of the abilities, best of the French abilities, even in multiplayer, which is kind of weird. Now, hopefully talk through that right now, why I think that is the case. Certainly one extra spy is nice. Spy's offensive capabilities are really strong. Because of the way that spies work now, they target a district as opposed to a city. There's a lot of districts that you have to protect, and the bonuses from each of the districts is pretty good. You can get the gold during the course of the spy's mission. You can get science boosts. You can sabotage production, which is pretty good, or you can get even more increases in diplomatic visibility. There's a variety of things the spies could do, and because players are going so wide and science is now not per city so much. Actually, I don't have that confirmed. I'm not sure if spy stealing is now based on the science of a city anymore, or the science of a empire. We don't have those numbers quite yet to the best of my ability, but in general, it feels like there's a lot more targets for spies than there used to be before. In general, Civ 5 spies, you put them in the capital of your opponent 98% of the time, because that was the city that would actually have enough science production to give you quick spy steals. So you'd actually get some benefit of that. And because that was such a clear target, that was the target that your opponent was going to defend. It is much harder to counter spy on defense now. A lot of times I find that I end up doing it in a reactionary way, whereas like, okay, my opponent just stole a tech from one of my cities. I get the notification what city is it that's in, then I deploy my spy to that particular location, which is very reactive here, as opposed to where I could preemptively counter spy in Civ 5. I could just drop a spy in my capital and know that he's going to be dealing with spies most of the time. So that extra spy is quite interesting, and it's quite early. Castle's technology is not that late in the tree. It's something like here, right? Which means late medieval. You can get another spy here, which is pretty cool. Or get a spy here, which is pretty damn early. Okay, so that bonus, not terrible. Spies, I don't know if I won or lost the game from spies yet. I don't know if their impact is strong enough that that as a whole is a great bonus or not, but it is a kind of fun, it feels like a fun and interactive bonus, a bonus that I'm doing something, I'm actively doing something, and if I remember to build that spy, that's kind of cool, although I have forgotten. It's sometimes hard to keep track of all the bonuses in your head when you're playing so many civs so rapidly. But anyways, that's a decent ability in my opinion, not too bad. The +1 level of diplomatic visibility is surprisingly better than I thought it was going to be as well. Maybe because in multiplayer I so rarely send people delegations and so rarely send people embassies. Perhaps I should get in the habit of it, but I did notice when I was playing as France, and later on in a game I tried where I actually sent some diplomats around, it was interesting to get the notifications, because the notifications were fairly revealing of what the hell was going on. There are too many notification pop-ups in general, and increasing visibility just means you get more of those fucking pop-ups, and it is hard to parse through them quickly. If you are playing multiplayer and you have a lot of things to do, especially if you're at war, you can often just glance over them too quickly, move past them and onto the rest of your turn. But there is a lot of good information in those bonuses. There is information like your opponent has completed an armory in such and such a city. Now, in multiplayer, people build armories right before they're planning on attacking you. So a lot of times, it actually does give me a diplomatic window into their intentions in a way that you don't ever have in multiplayer games. So it was kind of cool to be getting these notifications about all the things that were going on in the cities around me, about what they were doing, because I could get some sense from the units and buildings they were completing to actually what their intentions were towards me. And that was a really cool, unexpected interaction of this ability. Now, on the downside, I don't care that Greece has cleared a barbarian camp with a scout. I don't care. And I don't want to see that pop up, and it wastes my mental resources on a turn to read that. So I'm not particularly thrilled about an ability that gives me even more diplomatic spam. I wish there was a mod, and perhaps there will be at some point, or some set of options that I could tell it what type of information I'm interested in. And I'm interested in hearing units and buildings being built. I'm more interested in hearing units and buildings being built by my neighbors than I am my non-neighbors, and by cities that are closer to me than cities that are further away from me. So that type of thing I'd really like to know. I haven't played around with all the various levels of diplomatic visibility. I don't know where that caps. I mean, we could look, I could see if it's in the Civilopedia right now. I'm kind of curious now. If it is, no, that's not what I want. If it is, it's not immediately coming up with the visibility. Oh, there it is. Diplomatic visibility. Okay. There are 5 levels. None limited, open, secret, and top secret. I am not entirely certain what top secret access gives you, but I'm kind of interested in finding out. And it clearly is going to be easier to do as Catherine than it is as anybody else. And depending on the levels of information it gives me, and probably you guys know more about this than I do, because probably this is something you've experimented in a lot more single player, and since I'm primarily playing multiplayer these days, I don't have a lot of experience with this. But damn, I now want to try, after playing Catherine, I kind of want to try giving these diplomats to my opponents. Now the problem is your opponents can just refuse diplomats, right? It is quite possible in multiplayer that you go, no, I do not accept your 25 gold. But most people right now, prior to watching this video, are still accepting, including myself, embassies and diplomatic options from my opponents, which means I'm probably giving up more information than I really ought to be doing. So I kind of want to try this now. I want to see quite how much information the spies give me and if it's usable in the same way that I found at least the level 1 and level 2 areas to be useful. If it turns out that level 1 is still really useful, and after the meta becomes known that people basically never accept diplomatic offers ever again, which is probably going to happen, because why give up that information if you don't need to? This would actually be a decent ability, because it would give you information that nobody else has access to on a game. And I think that's so cool, because again, it's something this Civ gets to do differently and better than any other Civ, that no other Civ can do that. And that's a really cool ability. It was better than I thought it to be, which was, you know, surprising, because I don't think very much of the rest of the French abilities. All right, let's move on. Let's take a look at Grand Tour. However, I guess the caveat to that is, if level 1 is basically the same as level 5, you don't get that much more usable information. I know there's going to be more information, but is it useful information? Then this may or may not be all that useful, especially if people continue to accept embassies. Excuse me. All right, 20% production towards medieval, Renaissance, and industrial era wonders, and tourism from wonders of any era is doubled. Tourism from any wonders being doubled is an interesting bonus, or rather, excuse me, it's not actually a particularly interesting bonus. I think it's a decent bonus. The problem is in multiplayer in particular, there's only been, as of the time of recording this video, of all of the games I have played, there's been 1 tourism victory. 1 only. So the vast majority of the time, tourism doesn't matter. So getting a bonus towards wonder tourism most of the time doesn't make any difference whatsoever. So some of the time it may be useful, but at the moment it doesn't feel like tourism is all that powerful in multiplayer. Everything has come down to military victories so far, besides that 1 tourism game that I've played, with no religious victories and only that 1 tourism victory. 20% production towards medieval, Renaissance, and industrial era wonders. Certainly the timing of this is decent for a 20% production bonus. And maybe in the early game, I think raw bonuses to any resource in the early game are probably better than these percent-based ones. Because something, well, I mean, clearly it depends on if it's a 500% bonus, that's clearly the exception to that. But if you're looking at, like, do you want 15% or do you want plus 3 hammers? Or do you want 15% or do you want plus 5 hammers or something like that? In general, the bigger the city, the more likely that percentage boost is going to be higher than that raw boost would be. So 20% production boost is going to be decent in the medieval, Renaissance, and industrial, because you're going to have had time to develop those cities to a point where 20% is a lot more than the 1 or 2 it might be right at the start, or maybe the 3 or 4 it might be at the start. These are going to be significant boosts towards medieval, Renaissance, and industrial era wonders. There is another part of me that says, but this is a later era boost. Medieval, Renaissance, and industrial are not ancient and classical, so some of the very, very powerful wonders, Stonehenge, well, I say Stonehenge, but religions aren't all that powerful, but things like pyramids, things like Petra, aren't going to be things that you can get with this bonus. However, things like Ruhr Valley, things like, there's some really, really powerful wonders in this era. Alhambra isn't terrible. Forbidden City is quite good, probably one of the best wonders out there right now. Oxford is decent, that's in the industrial era. Ruhr Valley is in the industrial era, which is really good. Patella Palace is okay. What else are we looking at around this time period? Anything else sticking out? Just take a look at the Civ6 ones. This is clearly just going to be an overview, but I just want to scan a couple of them. Chitzen is good. This is back in Classic, so let's not check that. Anything else popping up right now? as a particularly strong one. There's some cultural wonders in here. So in terms of thinking about which ones does this apply to, the cultural ones I don't value all that much. If you're looking at the wonders that are going to help with your tourism victories, a boost to them is certainly useful if you're going tourism. Perhaps France would be better at going tourism than other civs, but in general, since tourism isn't going to be one of the options that you have for win condition in multiplayer, I'm less thrilled about this bonus than I might be otherwise. However, there are some really powerful wonders in that time frame, and it's nice to have bonuses towards them, so that is pretty decent. But on the downside, you're not going to have the early game boost to wonders, and there are a number of decent early game wonders that it would be nice to have a boost towards. Overall, not great, not bad, this bonus. Kind of maybe mid to low in terms of how I'd rate the power of that. All right, let's move on, talk about the units. The first of these is the Guard Imperial. They are where? Here, right? Okay, at military science, let's take a look at some of the comparison points. So Musketman is 55. This is now a 65 combat strength unit that gets an additional 10 combat strength when fighting on your capital's continent, and it gives you great general points for killing units. Where do we start with the problems with this? All right. Upgrades to mechanized infantry, so it probably has the same problem as Teddy's unit, which is instead of upgrading to infantry, it doesn't upgrade again until mechanized infantry, which is quite late, right? Yeah, it doesn't upgrade again until satellites, which is really annoying. It's not going to be able to be promoted until excuse me, which means you can't pre-build it. So if you're looking at a timing push, what do you do for a timing push? I explained this in the America video, but we'll explain it again here. What you do, let's say I'm going to do a cavalry related timing push where I want to kill my neighbor. I want to kill him with a very strong military unit that doesn't give him a lot of time to react and a lot of time to defend himself. But he knows that I'm going to attack him at some point. Like, it's in a position where it's clear I'm probably going to attack him at some point. How am I going to do that? How am I going to attack into a prepared opponent who's a human being, not a computer, so he's competent at fighting? How am I going to do that? And the way you do that is you do what is called timing pushes. You tech for something. The instant you hit the tech, you pre-built units that will become that unit. You upgrade those units and you attack him immediately. This gets around things like science compression. It gets around the fact that if he hits the next tier of military units, if he hits tanks, this unit is going to be basically obsolete, right? The cavalry. So what I want to do is I want the maximum window of which to kill someone with. So for cavalry, if I'm going to rush him with that, I will build, as I get close to the technology, I will build a bunch of horsemen who are light cav, and will upgrade into the cavalry unit, and I'll use gold to upgrade them into the cavalry unit, and then I'll attack him all at once with a ton of these units and try to overwhelm him with a new era unit, a unit that's very powerful because it's the next tier of military unit that is very fast, so I can get to these locations before he can get to the same tech, and before he can then also get military out of that era's power distribution, right? Because every time you go up an era, the unit's combat strength goes up. So if you can get ahead of your opponents in size, this is why science is so important in multiplayer. This is why it's such a win condition almost always, and why most games are based on military conquest rather than anything else. Because the people with the best science get to the next tier of weapons faster, and when they get to the next tier of weapons, there's a time period where it's very efficient for them to attack their opponents, because their opponents can't use same era units to defend. And that's the whole point of a timing push, is to very efficiently kill your opponents, not grind them down in some slow long war that requires all your resources, but essentially rush them with a powerful unit that they can't defend against. The problem with the Guard Imperial is, even if it is quite a bit stronger, at 65 melee, that's decently strong. It's not stronger than cavalry. I mean, it's 3 combat strength stronger. So it runs into the problem of it's a melee unit. It only has 2 movement, so it's too slow to do anything fucking useful. It's not stronger than the equivalent horse unit, which is straight up means that if I can have a 5 movement unit, or I can have a 2 movement unit, and the difference is 3 combat strength, I will side on the side of a 5 movement unit every single time. So okay, well, you say, all right, well, the fact that it is 10 combat points even stronger than that. Okay, if it's on your continent, that's a bonus you can't control. Where that war is going to be is always going to be based on things outside of what continent is it on. Because, maybe you think to yourself, well, I can't attack that player. Most of the time, the player you're attacking is a player of convenience, right? It's a neighbor who you can kill, or it's a player you have to attack to stop them from winning the game. And either of those scenarios, it's not going to be because of the continent in most times, right? So it's going to be very difficult to control the area that you need to attack from a winning the game perspective, grand strategy perspective, and also combine that with, is that on the same continent? Those are going to be often different goals, and you're probably going to have to let the decision actually rest on, well, what tactic, what strategy do I need to embrace to actually win the game, and not what continent happens to be closer to my continent. So some of the time you'll get that bonus, but you can't really make that bonus apply to the situation that you need it to apply. So some of the time this unit will be stronger, but a large percentage of the time it won't be stronger. You'll have a 65 combat strength melee unit that only has 2 movement that you can't gold upgrade into because it has no prerequisite unit. If you build muskets, muskets won't upgrade into this unit. Muskets will upgrade into infantry. And this unit, you can't pre-build a bunch of muskets and upgrade them into this unit. You just have to hard build this unit when you get to that tech. It's slow. It's not particularly stronger than other units of that era. You can't pre-build them. You can't gold upgrade them. When the next era hits, all of these units will become obsolete because unlike muskets, who will be upgraded to rifles, or excuse me, upgraded into infantry, and there is an era, by the way, where muskets are basically obsolete. This unit is going to have 2 more eras before it can do anything useful again, because it's going to have to wait until mechanized infantry. And honestly, the melee class as a whole is just pretty bad. So finally, what is the last thing it does? It gives great combat points for killing units. Yeah, I don't think it matters at all at this point. Yeah, a couple great getting a great general is really important, but once you have that great general, you don't really need a second one all that much. And you have to get last hits with this. And this has always been a problem with any melee unit that requires you to get the last hit to get a bonus. Especially on and I use melee here, not so much, not including horsemen, but melee as a class that is defined in the Civ6 stuff, this being the 2 movement melee units. It's going to be hard to get last hits with such a slow unit. Most of the time your unit is not going to be in range to get that last hit. A lot of the times you're not going to be able to combo this unit in the way that you can combo horsemen. You can't just like bring 5 horsemen across your roads to surround a unit and kill it or attack it and move back if you have that ability. With this unit, you're going to have to be within two tiles to kill it anyways, and they better not be in a hill. It's just, it has all the problems of melee with no particularly strong bonuses that make it unique in some way, and it can't be pre-built and it can't be upgraded in the next era. Why the hell would I ever use this unit? It's useless. So maybe what it is it's a very situational, very slow to build defensive unit, in which case it's not worthwhile either, because probably most times that I'm being attacked in a point where I'm going to be defending my cities and therefore I get all these bonuses, it's going to be surprise attacks. Maybe I could purchase one of these, but these have to be hard built, which means that my opponents are going to be doing a timing push on me. I have to take all those time to build these units slowly unless I'm able to purchase them directly, and you're not going to be able to purchase a lot of the era's units because it's just so much more expensive to purchase a unit in that era than it is to gold upgrade from a previous unit into that unit. So I think that unit is fairly shit in pretty much every way possible. Very, very weak unit. Just going to see almost no play because it just doesn't matter. So, all right, let's move on to their unique tile improvement. This is the Chateau. In Civ 5, we called Chateaus Chateaus because they were totally fucking useless. Let's go have a look at the bonuses for that. They were up by, where was it? Here, right? Okay, so it's available in the Renaissance era. In the Civics tree, it's pretty late. Unlocks the builder's ability to build the chateau, unique district, unique to France, +1 culture, +2 culture if next to a wonder, +1 gold if next to a luxury, can only be built adjacent to rivers, blah 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 blah. It's, no one cares. This is I can read from this description without even thinking about this. This is almost useless. Why is this almost useless? It's a small amount of culture that requires a citizen to work it, that isn't available to the Renaissance era. All these things are weak so far. It can get more culture if built next to a wonder, so there maybe will be a couple tiles in your empire where you can build this next to a wonder, and it might be nice to work because it would be 3 culture. And it gets an additional gold if it's next to a luxury resource, so very, very rarely it will be next to a wonder, and it will be next to a luxury, so it gets 2 culture and 1 gold, or 3 culture and 1 gold, okay. But it can only be built adjacent to rivers, and this is the one that kills me, because your river tiles are already so high priority. You tend to settle cities on rivers, which means that one of those river tiles is immediately taken by the river. Aqueducts require a river. Commercial hubs get a bonus for being on rivers. Everything gets a bonus for being next to another district, so your districts tend to be clustered, which means if you build a commerce hub in your city capital and an aqueduct, and then you build an industrial hub to get the bonuses there, and you build your campus to get the bonuses there, and then you have a couple wonders wonders that have river requirements only, like Hanging Gardens or Ruhr Valley or something. So your other river tiles are taken up, and because the best strategy in the game right now is ICS, where you just keep spamming cities every 4 tiles apart, you only have a couple tiles in between along your river because you have another city like 3 tiles over that way or 4 tiles over that way. So those tiles are now taken up by districts already, overlap with the other city tiles. Where the hell am I finding river tiles that I'm actually going to be next to a wonder, next to a river, next to a luxury to actually make this worthwhile? And even in this case, this much culture in the Renaissance, if this was 3 culture in the ancient era, I'd be like, holy crap, let's build this immediately. Now, still, I'd have to build a wonder and that'd be hard, but like, that would be so good in the ancient era. By the time Renaissance rolls around, you're making a fair chunk of culture already, and 3 culture is not that much of an increase overall. I don't think very much of this building. I haven't thought very much of many of the unique tile improvements in this game right now. As a whole, they seem pretty weak to me, with a couple notable exceptions, but I don't think the Chateau is one of those notable exceptions. So occasionally you'll get 1 or 2 very nice tiles in your empire, but it's going to be pretty rare. A lot of times you're not even going to remember, because you're going to be, if you're like me, you're playing a lot of Civ games, and the basics, the things that are the same across games will be the ones that you're concentrating on most of the time. And when you do have a unique ability, you have to kind of think about it and really try to plug it in. And this is going to be so hard to actually find good tiles to build this on, that most of the time, even when you play France, you're not going to have tiles that this really matters on. So I don't think very much of this ability at all. I just feel, again, like it's just too little with too many specific requirements too late in the game. So, all right, guys. Hopefully there's been some food for thought in this video. Maybe you've learned some stuff, or maybe you've had some ideas that about this. I'm really curious. I've really enjoyed getting the feedback in my YouTube comments about this series. There's been some really cool synergy ideas presented by chat. Sometimes you guys have responded in such a way as to be like, I think you underrated or overrated this, and you know, maybe I have, maybe I haven't. Well, time will tell on that, and certainly as I get more experience, I'll be able to do that. But I like seeing the alternate ideas presented. I like seeing the alternate thoughts of why this is good or why this is bad presented in the videos. It gives me another set of opinions to kind of incorporate into my game strategies, gives me more things to try out, makes the game more diverse and more of an interesting experience for me. So I love that. I love the comment. I love the comments that come out of you guys when these videos. And I'm hoping that we get some good comments on this Civ in particular, because I don't have a lot of experience with the diplomatic visibility. And I'm really curious what you guys tell me. What does top secret give me? Can I move my, I want to be able to like take over my opponent's, like maybe it'll be something really awesome. Like you can cause revolts in your opponent's cities, or, you know, you have, you know, top tier diplomatic access. So you can assume some of their city's ownership or something. You know, it's not going to be like that, but it's going to be something cool, I hope. And you guys are going to get to tell me exactly what that is. Anyways, as I said, hopefully you enjoyed it. I will see you guys soon. Thank you very much for watching. Filthy out, and I will hopefully see you guys in the near future.